For today's episode, we're making Cannabutter. To make this, you'll need to gather your ingredients, decarb your flour in an oven, mix it with butter, place it back in the oven to infuse it, take it out and mash it around, place it back in the oven, take it out and put it in a freezer to freeze it, liquefy it in an oven again, strain it, and then place it into a mold, chill it one last time, and that's it. You've done it. So to begin, you're going to need to preheat your oven to 420 degrees. Just kidding, 220 degrees. And after you've done that, you can gather your ingredients. So you'll need to gather an 1/8 ounce of cannabis flower, 8 ounces of clarified butter, half a cup of lecithin, some cheesecloth, an oven thermometer, which you should have already put in the oven, a Pyrex dish, a scale, a grinder, some aluminum foil, a mold of some sort for your butter, and a metal mesh strainer. Once you've gathered your ingredients, we're going to start by decarbing our cannabis. To do that, all you do is lightly pick apart your flour and place it into the Pyrex dish. And then we're going to pop this dish covered tightly with aluminum foil into the oven for about 20 to 30 minutes at 220 degrees Fahrenheit. Good luck to all you Celsius people. But yeah, 20 to 30 minutes depending on how fresh your flour is. 20 minutes for really fresh flour and 30 minutes for kind of older herb. Mine is like medium age level, so I chose to keep mine in for 24 minutes. And so when I say decarbing your flour, it's short for decarboxylation. So the naturally occurring chemical substance that's in cannabis flower is THCA, and that's present before you add a heat element to it, which transforms the THCA to THC. So that's why decarbing your flour before you begin to infuse it into a fat-soluble thing, which is butter in this case, is very important. And once that's done, you turn the oven off, crack open that door, and let it cool for about 10 minutes. Once that 10 minutes is over, take it out of the oven, unwrap that bowl, and careful, you might get a good hot whiff of that flour smell. So if you look closely at the herb, it is now going to have a golden tone to it. That's good. It means it was properly decarbed. Now you're going to blitz it up in some type of grinder and just get a fine grind on there. Alright, once that's blitzed up, place it back in your Pyrex dish. And then we're going to be adding our other ingredients. So now I'm adding the half cup of lecithin, which is an emulsifier that's just going to help the THC attach to the fat molecules in the butter even more to make it more bioavailable. So that means your body will be able to digest and get that THC into your system more accurately. Now I'm adding the 8 ounces of clarified butter. Make sure to use clarified butter, aka ghee, instead of regular butter, because it just helps along that fat-soluble process, because regular butter still has a little bit of water and stuff that clarified butter does not have, which makes our job that much easier. And mix it all up together with a teeny whisk or a regular sized one. Make sure it is all properly mixed, and make sure to put that aluminum foil seal back on and seal it up nice and tight. One more, you don't want any air getting in. Now it's time to place it back in the oven at 220 degrees Fahrenheit for 45 minutes. All right, once that 45 minutes is done, leave the oven on and take it out. Give it a good pat. Yeah, don't turn that oven off. No. And now take off that aluminum foil cover. But find some type of flat squishing device. I'm using the bottom side of a cup measure. If you have a potato masher, that works really well, or like a big flat spoon. Essentially, you want to crush all of those existing flour granules just to make sure all the surface area is, getting infused in there. And scrape off that excess, and I'm using a new sheet of aluminum foil because I want to make sure that my mixture stays tightly sealed. Very important. All right, now it is sealed on up tight. I'm going to place it back in the oven at 220 degrees Fahrenheit for another 45 minutes. And also, during this process, you saw my oven thermometer in there. Make sure to keep checking that because my oven tends to run a little hot. And now once that 45 minutes is over, you're going to turn off the oven and just let the mixture cool in there. Now that 45 minutes is over, I'm going to take that mixture out and put it in the freezer. And that's going to take about 2 hours to solidify. Once that 2 hours is done, take the solid mixture out of the freezer. We're going to wait until the glass becomes somewhat room temperature. All right, put the oven on to 200 degrees, just enough to heat it back up to liquefy it. It'll only take about 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah, it takes a long time. Don't get discouraged. Do a face mask, maybe sip some wine. Once it is liquidy again, about 10 to 15 minutes have passed in the oven, you want to make sure that you are measuring how much Cannabutter you're actually getting. Your scale is very important at this part. I'm going to stress this a lot. I've tared my scale with the glass under it, and then I'm putting the mesh and the cheesecloth on top. I didn't tear those. And I'm going to pour the liquid mixture into there so that all those existing flour debris get strained out, and I just have the good old Cannabutter to work with. Make sure you use a spatula to scrape all of that goodness in there, because we worked hard for this, you know? No droplet of Cannabutter left behind. Now that it's been poured through the cheesecloth and the metal strainer, just take that cheesecloth and squeeze it a bit more. There's some extra drops of Cannabutter that tend to linger in there. All right, set that cheesecloth aside and put aside the metal mesh strainer. And now, if you look on your scale, it should tell you the exact amount of grams of Cannabutter that you made. Write this down. Do not forget it. I'll show you why in just a second. All right, now that we have successfully strained our Cannabutter, we are going to place it into our molds. I am going to divide mine equally between these 3 spaces of a mold I found at Target. Feel free to use any mold you like. Your mold and place it in the fridge one last time to set it. So an 1/8 ounce is 3.5 grams. This strain of orange creamsicle is 21% THC. Transform it into milligrams, which means we have 735 milligrams. If you divide that milligrams by the total grams, we have 3.26 milligrams for every gram. Look at that! Please use a scale every time you measure your Cannabutter, because you know your dose. And that is it, folks. That is how you make Cannabutter. Super simple, a little time intensive, but for how much you get, totally worth it.